And when OBS tells me we're green, that means we are live. That's basically computer binary talk that says you're live confirmation. And we've got a full roundtable today on Red Star Roundtable and a freaking awesome topic for today. But before we get that, let's go around the rooms and introduce ourselves. We'll start with the Latin sensation that's sweeping the nation, Mike Carbajal. And, of course, my co-host. What's up, bro?
Howdy, howdy. And, as if you didn't already know, this is Hillbilly Will. We have to differentiate today.
That's right. Good segue.
I'm calling Hillbilly Will. So, Will, if that was what you were thinking about,
curses.
On your toes, guy.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Will, too?
All right. I'm usually on the Discord as Merchant or the Merchant of Mars. Will, I AdMech player from way back.
Awesome. And, of course, the fourth Beetle.
What's going on?
Hey, man.
Ken Kersey. I'm the one that you will usually see talking about infinity to
right.
infinity.
Which is pretty apropos because today's topic is Corvus Belli freaking infinity. This dude, like the raindrops that created the Grand Canyon, has worn us down, and we're like, let's dedicate a whole show. So, but I think it's only appropriate because you're a wonderful guest, and of course, we're happy to also have Will. I'm gonna just call you Merchant. Will,
Yeah,
Merchant. So to talk about Infinity today. But before we actually talk about that, we had Warhammer Fest all week. Anything that stood out to you guys?
The lack
of stuff.
Oh man, the Delac reinforcement
Oh,
box.
I'm sorry. It's Delac, not the lack.
Yeah.
I think they're probably the best of the additional boxes bringing in for all the different games, and they look just gorgeous. I don't even know what that one big
like brainy thing,
but it looks awesome, and I kind of want one.
So
and now the fact that legit assassins too,
right,
is even better.
Oh yeah.
And you play the Condor, right? The robed.
That's where I cut my teeth. That's how I got started. At this point, I'm a whore and I have like 7 games.
But that's where they all end up that way.
I got most of them except for Van Zar at this point.
Right. It's just like the other day I was on Reddit and there was a post that says She-Hulk is $5 off right now. And I'm like, well, in Marvel Crisis Protocol, I wasn't necessarily going to start an A-Force, but I think I will start an A-Force. Bye. So She-Hulk is inbound. Actually, she already arrived. And now I'm like, what other girls do I need to buy to beat up some comic book dudes? Anything else on Warhammer Fest?
Squig Riders.
I'm
very happy that Squig Riders. I'm very happy they brought more squigs in. I love squigs.
Yeah. Dude, the squigs are legit.
That Warboss mech armor is gorgeous. And I've been waiting for them to bring that out. And we were talking about it in the chat the other day. I was like, somebody's been watching our tail.
That's right. It does look art, because especially with the Grot and with the machine gun on it.
I was actually thinking that was a reference to one of the old Warhammer Blam comics where they actually had a orc with a Grot on his back
with the big shooter.
Yeah, it was great. And those are the two things I'm most excited about. I love me Necromunda, and I love me Orcs. And Orcs just means I can sneak them into Gorka Morka.
Sure.
If I can trick anyone to play.
And they said they only showed half the Orc kits that's coming out.
Right, so we know that they have the Squig, what were they called, Kent? The Squig
Riders?
Squig Riders. And then a new set of Orc infantry. They're Beast Snaggers.
Yeah.
So this looks like it's a little faction almost within the Orc.
So it's going to be another like specialized faction, kind of like the tank bustas or all the different little cultures that are within Orc culture. These are going to be the ones that are more like snake bites, so they go back to their rural roots.
But they're not a clan. So like most speed freaks most evil sons are speed freaks, but not all speed freaks are evil sons.
That's right.
Yes, and that's what they're like. But so these are the same thing.
It's closer to having burner boys or tank busters, like you were saying. They're going to go into every force, but you can easily put them as a snake bites theme. And from what it looks like, if they've shown only half their stuff in some of those paintings, those little previews, it looks like bigger squigs. With tank turrets coming.
I wonder if they're going to more flesh out this, or if we're going to see a refresh, because it's the speculation, and this is what I speculate, and I've seen it all over Reddit too, is that like it seems as though right now, well, this isn't true, but they would rather, instead of re-update the boys sculpt, which needs it, although it's pretty, it still looks fine. I think
it's newer than most of the guard was.
Right. So instead of do that, they'll introduce this other thing so as not to invalidate yours. Ergo, the Primaris Space Marines, right? Those were the true size Space Marines, but like, well, we don't 25 years of people having tactical Marines, we don't want to upset them. So it's almost as though like, and to its credit, I guess, they'd never phased out the TAC Marines, but it's almost as though these are your new boys, and in 10, 15 years, these are the ones that'll be on the table as everybody's boys versus the old boys kit.
I saw them and I thought the same thing. I was like, bigger boys, these are Primaris-sized boys.
Yeah, 2 wound boys.
I'm fine with it. Like, I love the fact that Space Marines got bigger and proper sized, and I'm waiting for them to just be like, oh, old Marines, those aren't here anymore. I know not a popular opinion, but
I remember when 2 wound. I mean, I'm not even going to go down this road, but when 2 wound units were just like the bomb, right, or multi wound units, and now they're freaking everywhere. So it's I don't know if everybody gets 2 wounds or if most units get 2 wounds, is that really an increase?
Kind of makes me think that one day they'll do the crunch like they just did on Warhammer, where they were up to like level 200, and now they've just brought everything down to 60 again because they just got out of control.
Out of control. Yeah, it's gonna do something. Something.
10th edition, you're gonna crunch it.
Yeah.
Oh, I highly suspect those new B-Snag infantry guys are going to be 2 wounded because they look like they're the size of knobs.
They said there was a community post where they talked about them and they touched on them on how they were tougher. I believe as well. They
stronger, but not as tough.
Right.
They can't take as much damage.
Yeah, so they might be strength 5 boys. I don't see why they wouldn't give them a 2 wounds. I don't know. Give everybody 2 wounds. Hell, give the Drukhari 2 wounds. I said it.
You heard it here.
The knobs the actual knob profile is a 4+ save, whereas the knob profile for the boys is only a 6 up.
That's right. I was a little. I don't know how. I don't really mind it, but I don't understand the half measure with the Cadian upgrade sprue. So the future boxes are going to get this new sprue. And it's like on one hand I'm appreciative, on the other hand it's a total half measure, because the easiest thing to do for the Cadian sprues, in which most people who don't want to just play Cadians, is to third party the arms and the heads anyways, or at least the heads. Everybody's done it. So them just putting alternate heads and not like giving a whole new box, I don't understand that. And then the obvious thing is, well, if they're gonna include this new upgrade sprue into the Cadian shock troop box that's on the shelves now, then that means they're not going to upgrade the Cadians in a minute. So while I appreciate that it's got the new sergeant weapons, you get a bolt. Finally, they can get a bolter in there, power sword, and also all of the special weapons, which is great because the Cadian shock troops box only comes with the grenade launcher, and I always run infantry squads with the plasma gun all day, every day. So it's almost I appreciate it. I just don't understand the half measure there.
Have they stated whether or not that's going to be sold individually? Because if it is, that's going to be amazing for people kit bashing.
What they said in the video is that was going to be part of the Cadian infantry box.
So
they haven't. Yeah, their business model has changed. There was a time when they would have done that, but this is not that time.
And it's completely. It seems as though that us as the consumer would be like, why don't you just, because the Cadian shock troop is so modular. It's a leg it's a leg and then a flat torso. You could combine that with anything. So if they gave a more expensive box that had 10 generic legs and then 20 different torsos that you could other regiments out of. Basically, if you could make other regiments out of it, like 2 or whatever. I'm just saying, it would be doable, and that would sell like hotcakes. It really would, to be able to make plastic other infantry.
Sometimes people forget, but that's actually what they did with the orcs. They didn't used to have special weapons or knobs in their own box. They added another sprue, and they dropped about 4 boys out of it, and there you go.
That's right. I do remember that. I remember when the new boys got the new box.
Oh, sorry, it was 6 boys because you used to buy them in packs of 16, and each sprue I think had like I don't remember. Maybe I'm off.
Yeah,
When
but then
did they change this? Because it used to be when I was playing back
Yeah.
in 3rd and 4th, it was 10. Well, you get 9 boys and a knob in a box with rockets, which aren't even a thing anymore, and big shooters.
It was when they did the knob with the hand up knob in the boys kit. Now I remember when that came out, and and that was probably pre Black Reach, post Macrage area. I always date it by the starter sets. So if that's, I don't know what numbers those are, but I remember when that box set came out.
It was a long, long time ago when I had, well, I didn't have more hair on my head, but it was darker color.
Right.
Yes, I think.
It was when I had abs. I never had abs. I always liked puffy tacos.
When you had an ab.
Yeah, an ab.
One big round ab.
Which was really cool is it's listen, I would never get into like AOS because I don't want another game that like any other game from here on out is going to be skirmish. It really is. I don't want another game where I have to build a big old army. But I got to tell you, if I won a contest and got an army out of it, it would be those dope ass vampires that AOS is rolling.
Yeah.
That looks fresh.
I want to like Age of Sigmar. I do. And I'm sure I'll get some messages after this airs about my comments. But I don't like the game. But, man, they're killing it with the models. The Hedonite models are great. The Vampire models are great. I got nothing but good things to say about the models. I just can't get behind them.
And Idoneth Deepkin, I mean, those are, those look like a hobbyist's dream. They're just gorgeous.
I've always liked the fantasy models better than the 40K models, to be honest with you, by quite a bit. I would probably just buy some of those vampires, and I am going to buy some of them, and just see if I can talk some people in Mordheim and use them that way as a skirmish game.
That's another episode there.
The more I like the out of print games.
Mm.
So
out of print.
On helping me rewrite the rules to refresh them to be more modern.
The Broheim rules are pretty modern looking. I mean, they've done stuff with them. At least it's a pretty good playable game.
You have to rewrite the rules for modern sensibilities because I think the original rules had like people of color go second always or something. So we have to bring it up to. That's a joke. Wow. It's a terrible joke.
And we are officially canceled. Thanks, guys.
As a person of color, I would have had to have gone second. But we're gonna rewrite these so that they're good. That was a terrible joke, and I as soon as it left my mouth, I was like, "I'm gonna have to pull that one back with an apology." Stupid. Anyways.
So as we were saying before the podcast, broadcast today, Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, jeez, that's right.
Today, we want to thank you all.
Yes, Happy Mother's Day.
Thank your mothers, because without them, you wouldn't be here.
I went to my mom's, had some amazing brisket.
And without mothers, you wouldn't have all those guys to be born or growls to be born that create all these beautiful models that we, all love and enjoy too. So it's not just you.
That's true.
It's also the creators.
That's true.
All the mothers.
I need to call my mom.
Everybody should call her mom. Tell them you love them. I was just saying, I told her I love her, and got her some. My mom is like the biggest Beatles fan, so I got her my wife and I found. They have this Lego set where you can build a portrait of one of the Beatles. The description is not doing it justice, but it looks like they're done with the little pegs, and then when you put it together, you can. It's got the kit where you pick a Beatle, and then you make it, and it looks like it's framed like an artistic. It looks very slick.
Yeah, those are really cool. I got the one for Starry Night. For
Starry Night, yes, okay, and they also they have some I think some Star Wars ones too, where it has like the character
Yoda and C-3PO. I think they have him, and those are cool.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we could talk about this ad infinity, but instead we're going to talk infinity, and that is quick wit, ladies and gentlemen, that I just demonstrated.
Corvus Belli's
I want
Infinity.
to. Here's the genesis of this topic. Last week we talked about, or last podcast we talked about how I had this epiphany on how, I used to have this 3-tier system. Like Warhammer is my number one because I put the most time, effort, and money into this. I want to get out and play this game, and then I have like Marvel Crisis Protocol and Blood Bowl, and that was Mike's infamous 3-tier list. And there's always like a third or fourth, and I've always talked about Infinity was always on the verge of getting in there, but then something happened where another game bumped it. For instance, Marvel Crisis Protocol bumped Infinity. But I've had Infinity on various online like starter boxes on multiple occasions in my car, and then I decided against it because I didn't have somebody to guide me through it, which we'll get to in a second, which is I think this game severely needs. But then what we were talking about is that I had this epiphany. It's like, you know what? I have these people, these friends that I want to play games with. For instance, like Ken. I think Ken's a cool guy. This guy wants to play. He likes Infinity. I've done my research on Infinity. I'm happy to throw in. I put $120 down, and I'm like, and if I don't like it, I don't like it. But I've had a hell of a time. I've had $120 worth of fun just modeling and painting because they are beautiful. So, and then Malifaux. Caesar loves Malifaux. It's worth getting 2 boxes. And then basically you do your things about these people that you think are cool and you want to hang out with, right? Will, I got a Necromunda gang. I know Will likes Necromunda. We also MCP and so on and so forth. Anyways, so wanting to be able to play with Ken and Caesar, and then our new friend Merchant here, who's basically our Hunt Showdown carry on when we PC game.
Not that good.
I jumped in, and I was like, let's do a whole show on this, but bring in some experts, and they can learn. That whoever's watching this can learn along with us at the same time. So we want in that theme. This is like one show where, frankly, Will and I don't know much about this game at all. So we're really going to be relying on both you guys' expertise to bring us along. But first, I want to start with Ken. Why don't you give us a quick rundown? I don't need like lore and all of that. I just like quick rundown on what is Infinity and compare it to something that people might be playing right now, or at least you know that you've seen people play like within the community at Red Star.
Okay, quickest way to describe Infinity is that it is a not too far in the future sci-fi after humans have gotten out into space, and basically it's special operations. It's all quick, it's dirty, it's supposed to be under the radar, and it's supposed to be deniable, and the entire game reflects those ideas. All right, it goes with a D20 system, and Necromunda is probably the closest because you have the biggest things that make the different profiles individual and how you kit them out are equipment and skills, which is, if you play Necromunda, those are the two things you tend to do with your guys. You take a profile and you give it different equipment, different skills, right? That is basically what Infinity is closest to, and it's a skirmish game, and it relies extremely heavily on terrain. If you want a quick game of Infinity, put it on like a standard Warhammer table, and you can say bye-bye to all the models turn 1. And terrain is that important, so that is the big part of it. So important, in fact, that I'm not even going to start doing my demos until I get my foam table next month, so I can actually make some buildings that are appropriate to Infinity.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
So the basic 2 mechanisms are, first of all, you have what's called AROs. AROs mean that although it is a one person takes their turn, and then the second person takes their turn, right? So it's not alternating activations. Like, instead, what happens is when, let's say Will down here is playing against me and hits his turn, and he's running his guys down the field, he's doing what he's doing. Anytime I can see them, anytime they interact too close to me or they start doing things too close to me, I can react to them. I can shoot them when they shoot me, right? If they shoot one of my guys and I can see them with multiple guys, I can shoot them with multiple people, right? So you're always looking for that angle. You're always constantly engaged. What is he doing over here? How can I react to it? What can I react to it with? Is he within 8 inches of my hacker so I can hack into him, make him spotlighted so my other dudes have easier time to shoot him? You're constantly busy in this game. What's up, Will?
The tagline of the game is "It's always your turn."
Right.
Even though it's I go like Warhammer, you do all your dudes, I do all my dudes. Just like he said, line of sight's such a key. You have so much interaction happening, and when you do end up with that interaction, say your guy runs across an alleyway, I see it happen, I say I'm going to shoot at him. You then have to decide how you react to me seeing and shooting at you. You can shoot me back, you can try to dodge, throw smoke bombs, whatever you need to do to get your objective going. And it makes every match feel fast, tactical, lethal, and really, really fun. I've never come away from a game of Infinity actually feeling like, oh man, I really got skunked because this, that, and the other. Always feels like there's something I could have learned from this. There's something I can always do better. And there's always really cool and crazy stories coming out of that game.
And one of the cool features, and this is honestly, even though I like the face-to-face roles, which we'll get into in a minute here, and I like the profiles, and I like the tactical combat, and I love the lore, the thing that really gets me most is the little things, and one of them is this. In every war game I've ever played, it's always you start at point A, and let's say you start here, you shoot, and then you move, right? Or you start here, you move, and then you shoot. Either way, the shooting happens here, or it happens here. In Infinity, it can happen anywhere along that line. And your opponent can choose to shoot you back anywhere along that line. So if you're in cover here and you're in cover here, your opponent doesn't have to shoot you there. They can shoot you here. And you're right there, all out in the open and an easy target. Same thing for you. If you happen to come this way and right here you can see him without cover, but over here you can't and over here you can't, you can choose to shoot from right here. So even how you move is impactful.
Does that seem, do people then just sit and not move so as to not proc those reactions?
Sure, you can do that, but then you don't win, because in this game, winning is not about killing your opponent 9 times out of 10. It's about completing objectives. If you don't complete objectives, you could kill your opponent's entire team and still lose.
So and they don't have objectives like you got a token 1, 2, 3, and 4, have more, hold more, and stuff like that. It's like you got to hack this thing and then extract type of.
Holding objectives are much rarer. They do exist, but mostly there's a lot of stuff like go find your opponent's high-value target, scan them, and then drag their HVT to your side of the board. In the same instance, you could also drag your own HVT, your high-value target, civilian, around to try to prevent them from doing that to you. I've seen games that they've played like tic-tac-toe where you're using hackers to turn relays on and off to try to like align them for your team. There is some area control, but the way the game is designed, you're generally not sitting back just shooting at each other. You're doing something that's always progressing you towards whatever your objective is going to be, because you have a limited amount of time, which is limited to the number of actions you have each turn. And if you're not using those to actually get those objectives, then you are actively hindering yourself. And kind of as I mentioned earlier, it's a game that it's harder to feel like your opponent defeated you and more like you didn't do what you needed to do to succeed. And so it always feels like there's a learning opportunity for doing better in the game. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about it. It's high skill ceiling and high skill floor.
Let me set the scene for you as one of my favorite missions in the current season, because they change them every year, the seasons out there. The current season, I think, has 16 missions altogether that are there. So this one's called Unmasking. And what you do is, you and your opponent start on different sides of the table. As normal, there's these 3 data consoles, right, that you got to get to, and you got to push the button. Right? And what pushing the button does is it lets you know which of your opponent's 3, we'll call them NPCs for the purpose of this. He's got 3 other dudes that aren't part of his army, right? And one of them's your target. The other 2 are decoys. And you got to go push the buttons to figure out which target you need to kill. And basically what you do is you be like, you push the first button, you're like, I think it's this one here. And you'll be like, yay or nay. It's yes, it is that one, or no, it's not. And if it's not, you can still kill it and get points, but you don't get the same amount of points you get for killing that big one. Right?
Okay.
But you might.
No, please. I'm tracking.
But you might be able to actually figure out, just from where he places these things and what he's doing, maybe which one he thinks which one is his actual target. Oh, he's got this one really well protected. That's probably the one I need. But then you find out, oh no, he outfought me, And he's like, I knew that's what you're going to think, a la Princess Bride. I knew that's what you were going to think. So what I did is I made this other guy over here that's more exposed. So you guess this guy first and waste some time.
Dude, so it's I guess I'm having a hard time envisioning. I understand that there's different missions. I'm having a hard time envisioning it based off of what I've seen. So in my research, I've watched battle reports, and
Okay.
and I just want to bring this up first because when I was talking to Will when we did our show prep for the show, I was like, this game, look, dude, like here's the bottom line of this game. This game is dope as hell. It's because what happens on the tabletop is so unique and so cool and so different. The gameplay loop, for lack of a better word, the gameplay loop of this game is fresh. And I think that's what brings you back, right? But I have so many issues as a new person trying to get into this game. Like you were just talking about seasons and missions. I had no idea that was a thing. Like, is that in a book, or do I buy 2021 season on store shelves or online, or?
You don't buy any rules, buddy. They're all free on the download site.
Okay.
Every single one.
I'll do you one better. They're not just free as a PDF, which you'd think, hey, they'd give you the bare bones rules. No, they also have a fully hyperlinked Wikipedia that connects straight to their army builders. So if you want to actually go, you know what, I like how this army looks. What do they got going on? You look at it and you think, that's just a stat sheet. I don't know what any of this means. What's mimetism? What's stealth? What's martial arts? You click on that skill, it's going to take you to Wikipedia, and it'll tell you exactly what that rule does. And then at the bottom, it'll be like, this interacts with this, 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 and this. And it has weird interactions. You can just keep going through the same kind of Wikipedia wormhole, learning about the game. And it's all free, it's all updated, and if they ever have changes, you're not looking for errata, you're not carrying around 5 books plus extra pages to have all your stuff up to date. Everything's updated live on their web service. All you got to do is reprint your army list, and you'll have an updated list to whatever the new errata changes are.
How do you... Oh, sorry, please.
I was going to say, now, if you're talking about ITS stuff, that's something that's more about their tournament scene. So they do change the tournament scene every year. That's seasons. When you start getting more tuned into what's going on in the game, you probably would start looking into a little bit of that. And that's where they kind of preview updates for the game as it goes forward, fixes. For a long time, they're big guys in robot armor, tags. They weren't very powerful, and so they would slowly go, okay, this season we're adding a little more strength and a little bit of extra this to those guys. They'd see how it works for the season. They go, we like the results, so that's going to just become a core rule, and we're going to keep doing it until it's fixed. And that's actually what they do. They actively work to update the game. But as far as like getting into it and what that sort of looks like, we talked about it earlier. It's a sci-fi game. You have Warhammer as your comparison, whereas this is sort of like an anime, sort of glossy sci-fi, very cyberpunk. And what those missions are going to be looking like is a lot of things with hacking, recon, black ops stuff. When you play Warhammer, a lot of stuff is, hey, go to the point, fight the guys. If they're coming to the point, kill them. You're getting a lot of points for killing things and walking to places and standing there and killing them. You're doing the same thing every turn, rolling dice, and that's a lot of fun. Infinity, you're going to start burning your brain as you're like trying to figure out how to specifically use all your orders and activations to get done what you need to do, while also protecting your guys and hopefully putting enough hurt on them that they can't come and take those objectives from you. And without showing it in progress, like you're talking about a little bit of battle reports, I can answer some questions if you have anything that you might specifically think of.
Right. Well, let me get with this, because I know very little about the game. I perused the website a little bit, but say that my dumb ass wants to get in the game. I know nothing about it. How do I go about even deciding like what I need to even buy to get started? Because like I was looking at the what are they called? The Ariadna,
yeah.
And they're all over the place. Like I'm like, what's core? What's starting level stuff? I mean, I don't even know what to, what
Okay.
to get.
Yeah,
So
and that's
let me
what.
set a
Let me 1 second, real second, quick, Ken. That's the golden question, and I'm glad this question is why you two are here. I mean, we talk about the game and stuff, but this is really the golden question because I am sitting. I've jumped in the pool. I am in this pool, but frankly, I'm still I'm not drowning, but I'm flailing around. So please enlighten us, Ken, on the best way to do this because I thought I was doing this smart, and I'm seeing that I might not have done that.
So first, let me put the problem into perspective. All right. So I want you to think back, and I want you to, or even probably more imagine, because it probably didn't go this way. Let's say you decided, hey, I like to look at that Warhammer game,
Right.
and you had nobody to talk to, and you didn't have any guidance. You didn't have friends that played it, or you didn't have, 1,000 things on the internet saying you should go here, here, and here because it's such a popular game. How hard would it have been to actually figure out everything you needed? Building an army, how hard would it figure it out? Oh, I need this many troops, and what are troops? And I need this many heavies, and what are heavies, and which of these things are HQs? Imagine if you had to do that all on your own without assistance. All right, so that would be the starting point. All right, Warhammer's a pretty complex game if you look at it that way. Oh, you get the main rulebook is like, where are all the things? And then you figure out in that little throw around, oh, I need something called a codex. Right? So there's a lot to Warhammer too, but there's also a lot of people and a lot of material out there over the long reach and extreme popularity of the game to help along. So now we move on to Infinity, right? Infinity's not nearly as popular. It doesn't have nearly as long of a reach. It has been around for 16 years. So it's not old either. But to start off, and this is what I would say to anybody, start off by getting a starter box. They have made those now, and you can find one for any force. It's really good value for the number of models you get in it, and it will have the basis of what you need to learn the game. You don't necessarily need to start at a 300-point army, no more than you should start at a 2,000-point army for Warhammer. Right? Start at 100. Start at 150. They have the rules in there. So the first thing you need to do is read the rules, and this is really where it gets kind of irritating. You know me, I don't shy away from the weak parts of games, and one of the weak parts of Infinity is the rules are rather obscure in places. More complicated than they need to be, and I'm pretty sure some of that at least comes from the translation from Spanish to English. That's not the whole problem, but that is definitely part of the problem. So the very first thing is read the rules, download them, check those out, right? Second thing is get a starter box. That's a good thing to start with, because then all you need to do is get the Army Builder app, and I really wish it would tell you to do this in the rules. Download the Army Builder app, and while they do, just like Warhammer, they do have a separate PDF with all the units and their costs and everything. It's much easier. Get the Army Builder unit, be like, oh, I've got this guy, look up what his name is on the box that you got. I got this guy, so we'll check him off. I got this guy, and check him off, and use that as your first army. And that'll work. You don't need to have specific sets and types of things at the beginning. Later on, you're going to start wanting, as you get into the more complex missions, you're going to want to have certain types of things that fill certain types of roles, but that's more of a down the road a little bit kind of thing. That's after you got some games under your belt. And the second part is yes, you got to be able to find people to get games under your belt with, which is one of the things I'm trying to do now. As soon as I get this army painted and I get this terrain that I'm going to built so I have some travel terrain, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start doing simple demo games first. And then I'm going to invite people out to a workshop how to build an army. And then we'll start going to the more advanced rules, because the basic rules, the advanced rules are a wowza in some cases if you're just looking at it with a fresh brain. And the biggest and hardest thing to wrap your mind around is if I sat down Warhammer, I sat down the core rulebook, and then I sat down every army's codex, and I said, you have to know all of this to start off with, what would your response to that be as a new player? Be like, it's probably not going to happen, right? In Infinity, it's the same way. I suggest most people read the rules, read the basics of the rules. When you get to the equipment and the skills, stop. If you're worried about complex rules, stop right there. Look at the unit from the box, the first box that you got, and be like, oh, I have this guy with these skills in this equipment. You can either go back in the book and look up, or in the Army Builder, you can just click on the skill, and it'll take you to the wiki and be like, oh, this is how this works. Because the skills and equipment that are in the rulebook are all the skills and all the equipment available to every unit in the game. And it's not a small roster. Nomads alone has, I think I counted out as like 102 different profiles.
Yeah, we were talking. There was in our show prep. I was going through Hockey Salam, and I did an army builder. You select the Hockey Salam, like the parent, not the sub factions, and there was like 85 entries, and that's not, you open up like an entry, and then there's data sheets, like 4 or 5 of them. There was like 85 entries alone in that, which was nuts. So
each of those entries is going to be your data sheet. They're going to have some equipment variation below that, but that's very much in the same way.
Well, some have different. I guess it is. So they all are the same.
Do you have a las gun? It'll have those different things below that.
Yeah.
So for Warhammer, looking like, let's say you have a Space Marine, right? And then below him you got the different ways that you can equip him. If you remember the old way the books were done, that's how they did it. Whereas they had, you can take a Space Marine with this and this. You can take a Space Marine with a las pistol and a chainsword. You could take a Space Marine with a bolt gun, and so on and so forth. This is the same way. You have that base profile with all this basic skills. And the stats he's got, those are going to remain the same throughout that particular profile, but then it'll be like, you can take a combi rifle, which is basically their version of a very advanced M16.
I see. I'm looking at the army builder. I'm tracking. You're right. So I'm looking at the Nahab Aero Mobile team. Let me do this. And it's one data sheet, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries, of which have different equipment and or weapons.
Loadouts.
But all of the abilities and stuff for the 8 Nahab Aero Mobile teams are all the same. They all have Berserk, Courage, Dodge +2, Frenzy, Immunity Critical, Immunity Shock, Martial Arts L2, Natural, and so on and so forth. So as we're talking about this, I did exactly. So I'm not new to how to build armies just because through Warhammer and all the games like that. So I did exactly what we did. I bought the starter set for Hockey Salam, and then on the box it tells you what is in this box, and then it tells you what they have. So I went into Army Founder. I found exactly where they were, and they were there, easy to find. Plop, plop, plop. Have 145, 160, whatever points it was. And then I was like, well, I got a little bit of extra change burning a hole in my pocket. It's either going to do this or I'm going to do something stupid with it. So I bought some. Looked up, Googled some things. So I need some hackers and specialists. I bought those two. And let me get something that's really cool, right? Because I need, at that point, I'm like, let me put in the hackers, let me put in the doctors on my list. And then I'm like, I'm like 60 points shy. So I'm like, all right, well, let me look through all these data sheets and find something that costs a lot, right? Because that'll get me to 300. So then I bought the forgive my, because they're I get that it's obviously a Arab themed army and naming conventions. So the Kahawajis, which can go between 35, 36, 40 points, and then easily they got me to 300. But here is the hard part, the difficult part is some of these units. I guess the more elite ones, like the Kahawajis, you can only take, it says there's an available stat, which is available, you can take 2 of them, right? And the box comes with 4, and you can take 2 or 3. Some of the box entries, and this is the WYSIWYG problem. This is the hardest part for a 40K person to play this game, because 2 or 3 of the entries and equipments are doctors. Like, these guys can take some doctors. And then when you get the models, they're clearly, one of them has a medic bag modeled on it. So I'm like, this is obviously the medic, but because it's a pewter miniature, he has a boarding shotgun, right? And that entry is in here, a boarding shotgun. But also you can take a Kaharaji with a light machine gun, with a assault rifle shotgun, who's also a medic that has the same medic bag. The model for that one does not have said medic bag. Bro, that makes me want to put my damn head through a window. How do you get past that when you're for your opponent and for you, so that it makes sense? Rubber bands like Blood Bowl, how do you do that?
There's a couple of things there actually, and one of the things I want to bring it back to Warhammer. did you what edition did you start playing Warhammer in? Just out of curiosity.
Battle Macrage. Will's saying 3. I think that was 5 for me. Was that 5?
That's when I played. When I was playing that, I played Orcs and Tyranids, and those were the 2 factions at very least where half of our stuff didn't actually exist, and you had to make it yourself.
Right.
I'm not. That's the solution. Yes, you can green stuff a bag onto a guy, and suddenly the M16 guy is clearly wearing his medic bag. That is an option. But the way them being a smaller company, they operate as quickly as they can. They do want to have every model exist. But they have stated that pretty much if you have what's the correct model unit, so you know what it is, you want to be as close to that as possible, they're not as worried about what the loadout is. And it is very easy to either number your bases like Blood Bowl, you can put bands on it. I've actually just gotten really good at either getting all of my stuff so that I have every option. I go, that guy's got a bag, that guy's got a shotgun, that guy's got this. For the ones that are missing, I've either modeled something different on them or I've numbered them for the most part. And because you do have an army list and you do have everything that's going to be labeled, it's never come up as being an issue in a game that I've played.
Sure.
Especially when part of the game is actually there is a certain amount of limited and public information that you're allowed to show your opponent. When you have that public information, your opponent does want to go and look at what you have.
Right,
There's
right.
A lot of
Yeah.
And so when you get to that situation, you go, okay, hey, I know what these guys are. They're public. Who's what and what's where. And they should be able to know their own stuff. And they start... I haven't run into a situation where it's an issue. I could see how it could be. But at that point, you just get some sort of marking or labeling device.
Sure.
Right?
I've just... It's so... The idea of a unit, of which there are many, because I was... So these are data sheets, right? And it was 80 plus. And I'm like, bro, they don't have 80 plus boxes for sale. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that's not that don't have models exist. So it's not a few, and it's not where, like, for instance, I'm glad you brought up the Orcs because I played Orcs also at that time. They were my first army, and I like you. I remember not having units for this, but they were in plastic. There was models in plastic, and you can kit bash. That's not something that's doable. Yeah.
Well, there are people. There's a whole community in Infinity that's about actually kick bashing in there. You need different tools, different skills. It's something else to learn, the same as if you're starting to learn green stuffing and, say, Warhammer. But a lot of the profiles actually do fit, at very least, off of a primary weapon. And for something that they know that they're not going to release all the stuff for, they'll release it with a secondary weapon pose. So a lot of guys will have, say, a pistol knife, double pistols, whatever, for their secondary. And that's sort of used as your generic stand-in if they're like, hey, we only have time to put out one of these guys. That being said, I own all of Nomads, the entire faction, all 3 sub-factions. I'm actually hard-pressed to think of profiles I couldn't put down that you could visually go, yes, that is this. With the exception of a few things like if he's a forward observer, which is just a skill kit, or a doctor, which maybe I put a bag on it, or I give him an armband.
Yeah, I'm tracking. I'm just it's frustrating when I don't. And then there's some like models. There's some units in the game that don't have a box set, but they have a blister with a guy, and it's like one day there'll be a box set with 4 of these models. Right. But to its credit, they all look very different. So the Gulans, like your infantry guys, look basic infantry. The Kaharaji guys that I got have turbans on their head. And they look dope. Like there's no mistaking it. But it's almost as though like I don't know. I'm having a hard time.
So we can look at this from a lore perspective as well. So believe it or not, in the lore of Infinity, and I've read quite a bit of it. For instance, all a paramedic or even a lot of the doctors use is a small injecting gun, which would go in a pouch somewhere on them, and almost every guy has a pouch. So you wouldn't actually be able to tell this guy visually anyways. Forward observers are the same way, and this is modern. Go out to a infantry unit in the modern army and tell me which of those infantry guys is the FO. You can't do it because he's got his tools in his molly vest just the same as everybody else.
Right.
And this is not over the top it's everything in Infinity makes sense as you read it if you allow that we've had some scientific innovation from now and 250 years from now.
Sure, I'm tracking. It's just that if you have doctors, those pose a certain tactical risk, that my opponent could use them to do whatever it is they do, and I want to eliminate them. And shit, I can't. I mean, granted, you just, hey buddy, which one of these are your doctors? Like, oh, it's this one. I mean, come on, right? You're not going to be playing some.
And
jerk.
it's small and finely detailed as a lot of these. You're going to have to do that in a lot of cases anyways. You're not really going to be able to see that bag on that one dude from across the table anyways. You're going to be like, oh, which one was your doctor again? And a lot of them don't even have that sort of thing. But like I said, with nanotechnology, your engineers, they're not carrying wrenches around and stuff like that. They're not that kind of engineer, right? They have nanobots to do their work for them. So they don't have to have a lot of outward showing of what they are, which is advantageous from a military perspective. And that's how I look at this game. I look at this game as literally like, what would futuristic spec ops actually do, right? They would use the best equipment and they would try to blend in as much with each other as possible. You don't want to be able to tell, oh, this is that one, this is that one, this is that one, so I can prioritize them. Even though it is open information, I think it thematically makes sense on the models themselves. The weapons are the important thing for me, and for the most part,
right,
they do have individual weapons for all the different profiles.
Right. Yes. But yes. For instance, it's just weird, the combination, because the one of my guys has a missile launcher, and he clearly has a goddamn missile launcher. It's huge. He also has the shotgun because he has the missile launcher and shotgun. And then the assault rifle guys have the assault rifle shotgun, but there's nary a shotgun to be found on their model, but there is one on the missile launcher guy. Those are the things that they cause a massive dissonance with me, and that's because I come from if I don't have it in 40K, I'll eBay the bit because it's got to be legit, and that's a mental hurdle I got to get by. Now, that's not to say that it's all worth it, because the gameplay loop that this game offers is so fun, and I don't know anybody that has played Infinity and says like, oh, that game isn't dope as hell. So I you know what I mean? I feel like the juice is worth the squeeze, like even the things that aggravate you.
And it's a little bit of so in Warhammer, you've got this thing where everything can be WYSIWYG, which is really cool. It's exciting to be able to have all your dudes represented on the table by what they're supposed to be represented by. But the dark side of that particular perspective is, why are we just now going to be getting a mega boss, a war boss in mega armor for the orcs?
Right.
Where has it been in the thing? They didn't have a model for it, so they got rid of it.
They got rid of it in the last codex, right? Because they didn't have the model. So they
Correct.
actually went that route where if we don't own the model, it's gone, because why? Because it confuses the goddamn consumer.
No, it was third party. No, see, that's the looking at GW through the beatific eyes. The real answer is a lot. Third party was making a lot of stuff that was filling in the gaps for what they didn't have, and so
didn't have any recourse for it. They actually lost a major case that got them in trouble because they said, hey, those guys have to stop making mega armor war bosses, and they're like, you guys don't even have those in your shop. You can't make them stop doing that. Like,
thanks, Chapter House. Ruined it for everybody.
Yeah. GB is not a fan company. It's a corporation.
And to kind of go with the WYSIWYG thing, I actually run into the thing with my AdMech guys that annoys the crud out of me is every infantry box I want to run 3 plasma, and I have 1 plasma
in the box,
1 arc, and 1 the arc rifle, and I'm sitting there like, I like those weapons, but at least the current edition until the new rules, it's all plasma all day, and now I have to buy 3 times as many boxes to get the right amount of plasma, or I have to go, don't worry, the arc rifle that you probably don't know that's an arc rifle, that's plasma.
Right.
Which you might be disappointed with the new codex, because even like with my Blight Lords, they're like, no more 5 combi plasmas because only 1 comes in the box, so eat it. So.
I never thought about it that would have been for recasters because they might because one comes in the box, your guys can take one. It would be like, for instance, Scions can take multiple if they take 10 guys. I think then they can take what one per 5. I think plasma guns. One comes in the box. Then again, the boxes are sold in 5 for some goddamn reason.
It's the same thing with AdMech. You get 10 guys, you get 3 different weapons, and if you have all 10 guys, you can use all 3. If you have less, you can use up to 2. Which
I hate that shit. It was from back in the day. I want a power fist. I want my sergeants to have power fists. You know what I mean? But I didn't have enough, and you had to go to the Kit Bash store, or you had to go on eBay. But now you can go to Pop Goes the Monkey and get like freaking 20 of them for like $15. It's awesome.
So with Infinity, it's a smaller hurdle. It is there. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. But there's so much stuff, and they've been a lot better about filling out their ranges to try to get there. Because this is their 4th edition. If we're talking about back when I got into the game at 2nd edition, the rules were crazy. There was half as many like kits actually done. And they were only learning, like, at that point, how to start making really good-looking miniatures. But, I do want to touch on the one point that I think is a big deal for me when it comes to this game, and that is, the rules are great, sure, but the miniatures. If anybody's rivaling GW for quality of beautiful miniatures, it's those guys. They are outstanding. The fine detail that you can see in those things is insane.
Well, since we're talking about miniatures, let me ask you this. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on their website that's last chance to buy. Moreover, from the time that we did our show prep, and Mike and I was talking about this, 2 days ago?
Yeah, it was like Thursday.
Friday, whatever day it was, the Ariadna have went from 6 pages to 5 pages in the last 2 days.
They're getting rid of their older, remember he said the first and second edition models weren't great. They pride themselves on their miniatures, so they're trying as hard as they can, as fast as they can, to get those old models out and bring new models of those same ones in.
Well, some of the models that they got rid of, they didn't look bad, but like I said, they're...
Well, they never looked terrible. They never had a Malifaux first edition phase, but they definitely didn't look as good as they do now.
I found some Malifaux first edition models today.
They had some bad models earlier.
It's a hobby. It is refreshing. I forgot how great it was to work with pewter or to paint pewter, because it's like you remember what, Will, when we were talking Marvel Crisis Protocol? I'm like, these are beautiful looking models, but they haven't yet have that artisanship to have the detail raised from the model. Like the plastic, and like Spider-Man's, like one coat of paint, even if you thin your paint like I do, and I do multiple layers wash, you know what I mean? But it's still thinned. Like the lines and the webbing in between the lines on Spider-Man get lost. Not the case with this, baby. Bring that paint. It is raised like the perfect amount from the model. It will multiple coats. It just feels tough. They are gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
And they feel real.
Me to the game in the first place. The models look good. I like that the Ariadna, or where everybody else is technologically advanced, they're a bunch of white trash people that got left on the planet. Now they're making werewolves and shit. I was like, that's cool. I like that. That's cool. Everybody else is playing Gundam Wing, and I'm over here with, McConaughey from Reign of Fire. I thought that was kind of cool, but I don't know what that means in game, and there just wasn't a community here for me to spend that money to a European company that are, at the time the dollar to euro wasn't that great, so the models were kind of expensive for a game that I may not get to play.
And I love, so when we're talking about the lore, and you're talking about like Ariadna's got one of the cool ones. They were the original explorers of mankind out into the space, and then they got lost, and the space program pretty much got dusted at that point. And so they were the forgotten colony, only to be discovered, and them trying to retake the powers that be, trying to retake it over years later in their fight against that. But everything that you read for the lore, you're like, I love GW lore. GW lore is that thing of, wow, these are like really cool, crazy things going on, and it's fun to read, right? Infinity's goes the opposite direction. We're like, oh, all of this really makes sense given where we are right now and given these scientific advances. Like, all this makes sense. Nothing is beyond the pale or crazy or like, oh, that would never happen. Sure, no, pretty much everything in there.
You look at it and you're straight up like, oh, that could happen. If this and this, yeah, that could happen. Where in GW, you're like, oh man, when are we getting this 1,000-year-old space god who's going to do everything with his mind? Is he even look like that, or is that what he's projecting into my brain? I don't know. But
what's the next demon?
You don't have the right genes to become space marines.
So if you're into science fiction,
hard sci-fi.
This is hard sci-fi.
Right.
Whereas 40K, I like to lovingly call science fantasy.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
They have swords, for God's, like medieval swords. When they could, it's like we have all this high-packed infantry weaponry and tanks and artillery, but I still have this broadsword. You know what I mean? For the Middle Ages. Yeah.
Well, you also have basically magic, and you have demons, and they have
summoning. Yeah.
Infinity actually is taking place a little, and tell me if this doesn't like make sense to your brain, right? So Infinity is taking place a little bit after our first contact with aliens. And we contacted some aliens who are supposedly our allies, and then the big enemy, right? It's called the Combined Army, and this is a bunch of different aliens, all under the control of what they call an evolved intelligence, which is basically a super AI.
Right.
Covenant
but
from
it's still out there. It hasn't hit Earth yet. It hasn't hit any near of the major planets, of the major forces, because we actually only have a few systems where it's not like 40K. I think there's a total of 14 planets altogether. Might be a little bit more than that, but not much. But none of the near planets or the big industrial planets have been hit. It's been all these outlier planets, right? So while all this is going on, and you've got that front, like, oh, these aliens are coming in, and they are hostile. We know this. They haven't really hit home. It'd be like there's wars out in the islands in the Philippines. We have we have some interests in, but it's not here at home. So all the different factions are still sniping at each other, and that's what Infinity is. They don't want to have open warfare, but this is them doing all their little inner sign warfare that they can say, oh no, we don't know anything about that. It never happened, right?
Mercenary. What do you mean? We didn't have any boots on the ground. That's crazy talk.
Plausible deniability.
Well, I think that what's so cool is that you look at each of the factions like offers something really cool. Like I really picked this up. The Dahab Aero Mobile team looks super tactical. Like these guys look like stealth ninjas. Then they have actual ninjas like the Hashashin assassins, and then like the Kaharaji that I have look like badass dusters, spec ops. You know what I mean? And it's like these guys look. I feel like these guys look like a futuristic spec ops. And if that wasn't your style, like they're really tactical with cool tech. If that's not your style, they still have grunts with flak jackets on US Ariadna, or like there's like the Kozak sub-faction that looks like like the Russians and the Spetsnaz.
The Spetsnaz.
The Spetsnaz look like they're all
like
tactical.
Spetsnaz.
Yeah, they look all tactical. So I'm just like, and then if you were into like for instance, if you ever played one of my favorite games, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided and Human Revolution, I think the one that you've been posting, Ken, the Aleph, is that Aleph?
Aleph, yeah.
Aleph looks very much like that. And then they got like you said, Combined Army, Xenos is hell.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the Japanese, they got some cool ninja, Akira looking type of. I mean, like the faction, whoever designed these are like, hey man, this army is gonna appeal. The look and feel is gonna appeal to this person. They really went out of their way to go like, oh, this is gonna resonate with me because of that look and feel. I didn't know two things. As a matter of fact, it was Ken. It was like, oh, dude, you're playing Hockey Slam? Best doctors in the game. And then go on Google. It was like, dude, they have the best doctors in the game, period, hands down. I'm like, oh, yeah, I thought they looked like really cool, futuristic spec ops. That's why I got them.
It fits into their lore. That's actually what the Hakazlam are all about. Their planet and everything like that. They are the premier bioscientists of all of the humans. And their profiles and their units reflect those abilities.
Right.
And their interests.
So something really cool about the lore is after the space program happened that we just talked about, right? a lot of the nations, the big ones, collapsed. They re-amalgamated into new nations based around corporations for the most part. And so when you actually look at Hawk Islam, it's not just a nation based on a religion. It partly has that, but it's very much, hey, we have a corner on this technology. We don't let anybody deal with it, and we're having the best doctors because of it. Aleph are the guys who are making all the like crazy cyborg tech. They're refining that, buying it from Hawk Islam, and they're making all these really cool cyborgs and androids. Whereas Pano is a team that's all about having a huge amount of commercial success. They buy the best tech. They take it from other people wherever they can through hostile takeovers, and that's why they have such great tags, which are their tactical armor gear. They're guys that are riding in big robot suits. And so you'll actually notice that if you look at all the different factions and nations, there's not only a lot of reasons for them to exist other than it kind of being like, oh yeah, it'd be fun to have these guys. It's like there's a logical progression to them being created, why they're there, what niche they hold in the galactic society for humanity, and why all their units function the way they do under those guys. Because a lot of times you're getting guys that are peacekeepers, you're getting guys that are spec ops, you're getting specialists in all kinds of fields. Because you're not having open warfare, you're having specialized spec ops, black ops warfare.
Right. Yeah.
So here's the age-old question then. Who are the good guys?
Yeah, who's
There are none.
Yeah.
Humanity.
It's just like in Warhammer, are there really any good guys?
I
You want to live in the Imperium?
Wait.
You get down with your bad self if you
Yeah.
want to do that. I will pass.
The orcs are the good guys.
They about as at least they're doing what they want to do.
Yeah. They're having fun. They're the only ones.
The orcs are the most American faction there is.
Yeah.
The only guy.
I told a guy that years ago, back when I played at Alien Worlds over there off Marbach, and he told me that I was an American.
You who served his country is un-American? Okay.
America.
But I do want to tap, because I know we're getting kind of long here, and I do want to tap on two things.
Please.
Right. One is a few of the really cool skills that I just want to briefly describe, because this is really kind of the thing that if it's, the rules part that gets you in the models, you're like, oh, those are cool, but I want to know about the rules a little more, right? I want to just talk about some of the cool stuff that you can actually do on the table. For one thing, you have a thing called camouflage. That means you have a guy, he's basically in stealth, and he's got a little thing on the table, but you don't know what he is, because that's private information.
Right.
He could be one of a bunch of different models. You don't know until you do something with that. He can be moving around the table, doing whatever. You're like, what is that? And you're like, well, you'll find out when either you can figure out what he is or he shoots you.
It's a token.
Yeah, it's like a transparent token.
You got it. Tokens, because they're technically height like 0, I think, when they're running around. Or
no, they're their same height as whatever they're supposed to be.
It's like the Predator.
Yeah.
Another cool one is impersonate or hollow mask, and what this lets you do, and I think Hawk Islam's got a model with this, is it lets you appear to your opponent, and on the sheet that you're going to give him, it's going to say that you're a different model altogether. Right? That you're just some grunt model, or that you're some big bad model that they don't want to have nothing to do with, right? But instead, you're just this other model. So there's a lot of, this game is not, one of the things I tell people, don't worry, buy what you think is cool looking, because everything is viable. There is no profile or set of profiles that's just going to blow everybody out the water. The thing that's going to blow your opponent out the water by far away and the most is a bit of luck and that. Because you can make pretty much anything work as long as you do the one true thing, which is you play that mission.
Right.
You play that mission. If you just try to go out there and kill your opponents and it's not one of the 2 missions where that's a thing.
To double down on what Ken said, I actually used to play with 2 of the 5 best people in Nation were in the town I was in. They would kick my butt all the time. I'm not saying I'm good. But they would play some of the worst armies. Not necessarily to give you a handicap, but because they're just like, yeah, I want to prove that this is, X, Y, or Z. And they would play the guys that everybody would say is the worst, and they'd still destroy absolutely everyone with it. So it's not necessarily a game about having that power faction, or you might see in GW when the new codex comes out, everybody rushes to it because it's the new power level. Everything's really well balanced. So it's all about how well you play the game.
Awesome.
And guess what happened when 4th edition dropped? All those 1,000+ profiles. 4th edition dropped. All of them were updated. It did take them, to be fair, it took them a few months to iron out some kinks when they dropped it, right? But everything's up to date now, and everything is pretty much balanced. And N4's only been out for a few months. There's no waiting for my time. It's always your time. You just make it work.
Right. They're not waiting for. Yeah.
So as a new player that's getting into it, and I've heard you guys talking about it a few times in our group chat, you're looking at 300 points. Is that right?
That's a full game.
That is a full tournament size game.
Usually averaging out, it's points wise.
They vary a little. I'd say about 150 to 250, or 150 to 200, depending on the box.
Yeah, I think mine was 165 if I remember correctly.
So a starter box is a good core, and then you add a couple other cool little dealios, and then you're probably good to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually what I do, and you only really usually need for most factions, 2 boxes after that. The support box is always a good one. That comes with your engineers and your medics, right? And usually some little robot dudes to run around with that do cool things like make your doctor not have to expose himself to damage, and then your little robot dude runs out there and he does the stuff for the doctor or the engineer, which is really cool, right? And then one big dude of some sort, one like truly big threat to make you feel like, because they usually don't come in the starter box. Usually you're like mega threats. Well, that's a tag and that is an option, but there's also a lot of heavy infantry that have like badass weapons or something like that. And so you can usually get them in a single blister. Right? So 120 is like a high end for a 300-point army.
So what do you mean by big ones then? Because I'm looking at the Ariadne box and there's 2 werewolves and a motorcycle in the starter box.
You're talking about the points whites, what it costs to put them on the table.
There is archetypes, and when you look at Ariadne, they are going to be one of the teams that does run a higher model count in general. You're going to have a harder time grabbing some of the high cost stuff because they don't quite have some of the tech. You'll be investing more in.
So they don't have the big mechs and stuff, right?
They have like a prototype version with their blackjack.
Yeah,
but that's closer to a heavy infantry than it is a true tag. But yeah, their bigger stuff is you're going to invest in higher quality guys. Instead of getting grunts at 10 points, you're going to be getting like 30 point, 45 point, like the Ohios or the Mavericks or something like that.
Their doctors literally running around with an axe.
Yeah, the 112s, the 112s.
Now you have to remember that some of them will be named Doctor. But if you open up, like, for instance, I don't know if Grunt is a type, is a data sheet, right?
Yeah.
So if you look into Grunt, some of the in the equipment will be able to take a medical kit. That's your doctor. You don't have to. Yeah.
And all that medical kit is literally like an injection gun that's slightly bigger than this.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like paramedics. That's basically what they're carrying. So now you can see why you don't really have to have something on a paramedic, because what's this going to do? It's going to go in a molly pouch.
No, yeah, but it's still like an identifier for your opponent. I'm tracking, but almost like if they didn't include what is quite obvious a medical bag on some of these, right? That then that wouldn't be a problem. Like my Aero Mobile team. The data sheets, there are multiple of them that have the parachute equipment. And one model has the parachute equipment. But like, it seems as though the parachute equipment is also has an entry for each of the weapon loadouts too. But the guy with the boarding shotgun is modeled with what is clearly a parachute. It's got the rig and it sits lower.
So he's the bad soldier. That's what you're telling me. Because normally when I parachute jump, I dump that parachute rig off me as soon as I hit the ground.
Yeah.
So he's the bad one.
He's keeping it for a souvenir.
To speak for parachute specifically, it's a different way to enter the battlefield.
Right.
You parachute in place and walk in on the side like old infiltration or outflank used to
be.
So that's more like, why did that guy drop his rigging?
Yeah, it's almost as like that. Because I almost bought Ariadne multiple times because I was like, you can play they have airborne units who could do that and stuff. And then you have to take a lieutenant, and then sometimes the data sheets will have an option of taking one of those guys as an LT, and stuff like that. Anyway, we are at an hour and 9 minutes. Anybody have any last mins?
if you want to try out a sci-fi game that's highly tactical, that you can pretty much get anything you want and you can make it work, and a company that really loves their game because they really truly love it, give Infinity a try. And I'm not saying go out and buy anything. I'm saying in about a month or two here, when I get out there and get demos, check out the Red Star page or check out the Infinity San Antonio page, and I'll be posting stuff up. So I will walk you through those steps, and I'll be there to answer those questions that you need, so you can decide, do I want to drop $120 or is this a pass for me? Because it's not for everybody.
Right. Merch.
I'd say the same thing. If you think the models look cool, you could ask Ken or myself, run you a demo, show you what the rules look like, so that you know it's something you want to get into. It's going to be very different from something that you're used to if you're coming from Warhammer or Age of Sigmar. But it's a really fun game. It's actually fairly low cost when you look at it. When you consider that for a whole army, you're talking $100, and they'll give you a tournament grade start. Like, here's $100. You get a tournament box. It's provenly good a list, or you can just pick like 2 or 3 boxes that equal about 100, and you're done. And but before you do all that stuff, take a look at the game. See if you like how it plays. See if you like the models, because I guarantee you're gonna have a lot of fun with all the crazy tactical depth, all the crazy missions, the amazing models, and just like Ken was saying, this company, I've never really seen a company where I felt like, holy moly, these guys are in love with their product. Like, even GW, I see some stuff where I'm like, weird business practices. I don't like that. These guys love their game.
What a very cool thing to say. But because I can see that too.
And they partner up with third parties all the time. If they don't want to do it or can't do it, all their terrain is made by a bunch of different third-party companies. They're like, go ahead, do it. You're cool.
Yeah, they're very big in encouraging a lot of that sort of stuff, and so
I
can feel the that feels amazing to me.
And I think that there's a lot of perspectives of if you're a Warhammer guy like me, or let's just say a GW guy like you, like me, it looks like a whole different world where the consumer is just showered with gifts. And that might just be because we're used to the way GW handles it. You know what? But again, everybody's updated. Everything's free. The rules are free. The data sheets, the army builder, no subscriptions. And then in the end, you have these gorgeous models. So it's like everybody is what they're delivering to you is a labor of love and respect to the gamer.
What they have to do to make up for 15 to 20 years of GW just existing and being the biggest guy in the room, they're making up for quality product.
Will, got anything, Ben?
No, I'm definitely interested, and I can say honestly, as somebody that's looked at models in the past but never pulled the trigger, I can definitely say after tonight talking to you two, I'm a little more interested than I was before, and I could potentially definitely see buying a faction just to try it out. I'm always been hesitant to buy stuff because, especially with a small game like this, because like we've said in previous episodes, I can go out and play GW anywhere.
That's right.
But, War Cradle and some of these other places, and maybe not so much. And so that investment it's a little scary, but I can definitely say that, I've kind of got my mind turning about it, and I'm definitely a little more interested about it just for the tactical perspective and the level of strategery that goes into the game compared to Warhammer, where it's I'm just going to stand here and beat the crap out of you, and that's the end of the game. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but having something a little bit different, I think I'm down with that. So might pull the trigger on the starter box.
Sweet, man. I think they have two. There's the Kozak subfaction one, and then the general U.S. Ariadna.
Well, I like the one that's got the 2 werewolves.
The werewolf, for sure. Yeah.
It makes me think
it's
of that
werewolf
movie.
With like a giant revolver, I think.
If you ever seen the movie Dog Soldiers, the British movie, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, it's a horrible, cheesy werewolf movie, but it makes me think of that movie, and so I kind of want to do it just because of that.
Those are called Dog Soldiers, by the way.
Yeah,
that's the actual name of the thing. Yeah, those are Dog Soldiers.
On several other pages, and like I said, it just reminds me of that movie, and I remember being in Iraq when young 18-year-old Will was sitting there watching Dog Soldiers on his laptop with all his buddies, and so it's very reminiscent.
And the U.S. Army is so U.S. Army in Infinity. Oh, yeah. So U.S. Army.
I like it. Like U.S. Ariadne, but it's U.S.
Yeah. Right.
All right, everybody.
I might do it. So I might link up with one of you two to do a tutorial game just to see.
Hell yeah.
Well, if you see this table I got set back here, it is dense and crazy.
It's been looming the entire broadcast in
right.
chat, and it's definitely it's enticing. Let's put it there. So while we're talking about that, what's the table size, Ken?
4x4.
4x4. Okay, that's too easy, man. 4x4 is a lot of your small skirmish games. That's easy enough.
That's a 4x4 mat that's on the table right there.
Perfect.
That's about
on my 4.5 by 4.5 table.
$700 worth of wood for a 4x4 right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't. This right here is a piece of crap MDF table that I found on the side of the road, and then I just refinished it with some red paint that I had for my wife's front door.
How does that mean it goes faster?
It goes faster, yeah. The games go faster.
That's right. The games do go faster on this table.
I'll be doing my game table here in the game room. As you can see, I've actually started decorating thanks to Dragon's Lair donating some stuff to spruce up my room here so it's not as ugly during the broadcast. But I got a big open space over here that I'm going to be building a table here real soon.
That's sweet.
So might have to have you over, Ken. Or Will?
I still seen some Necker and Under games I need to try out, though. I do know I like that game now, by the way.
Yeah, and to get some sevens in now that
oh yes,
Will and Mike keep talking about. I saw Will playing a demo game with Jonathan earlier this week, and now I'm like, man, I'm really jonesing to get back.
Have you not played Blood Bowl before? Merchant?
He was doing a demo game for somebody else.
Oh, okay, good, because Blood Bowl is the best.
And I
played almost everything.
Yeah.
I almost felt a little bad busting up in there like the Kool-Aid man, because he was playing Skaven, and that's my primary team. And I'm like, but if you do this, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not messing up your tutorial game, Will. I'm sorry. I'm going to go over here now.
Wait, they're bringing extra coaches on the pitch. What's happening here?
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't playing Blood Bowl.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
If you don't currently have an army and you don't want to go out and buy it previously, by all means, as soon as I get my demo army done, which if I can actually focus on it, will hopefully be done by the end of this month, then by all means, say, hey, Ken, can I come over to your place and I'll do it there. I'm not taking this train anywhere. It's too expensive to take it anywhere. But it is a great game here.
Going on out there.
That being said, I have 4 armies myself. Most of them are not painted because, of course, they're not. But I have US Ariadne, so if you want to try those guys out,
there you go.
Well, maybe we all 4 of us plan a trip over to Ken's Hobby Shed. He's got enough room in there for all of us.
It's called the place to be.
I do. It is the place to be.
Like in Seinfeld.
I thought you said it was an Airbnb. You renting that place out to a bunch of nerds.
You could.
That's what most people think this is when they see it from the outside. It's like, oh, you're doing an Airbnb? It's like, no, that's for me.
For nerds. Just for nerds, though.
That's when I want to play War of the Ring and I need 80-foot by 80-foot table space.
or merchants trying to get enough people to play Curse City. So
there you go.
Here. I'm down for whatever game y'all want to play. Y'all have me over or y'all come over here. I'm jonesing, man. I've had 3 games since March of last year, and I need to play something.
I had 0, and I think I got a date set with Josh to play some Marvel Crisis Protocol next week for my first game since this all started.
I'm excited, guys. I'm ready. I'm ready to get my demo game in.
All right, bros. Well, again, thank you to our guests, and thank you for everybody that watched. Just ask on Red Star. Just, hey, I'm interested in Infinity. And you will have somebody contact you. I guarantee it.
I tend to appear in places when people mention Infinity.
Yeah, that's true.
So don't get weirded out. It just happens.
Appears out of nowhere.
Yeah. And he's there. It's like Beetlejuice.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.